My name is Todd, and I'm the founder of Ashaya Yoga. Welcome to Asana Spotlight. Hey, I want to give you guys just a heads up on the monthly classes that I'm teaching have been amazing. It's called Pillars of Peace, and you can join at any time. And if you get the all access pass, you get the whole set of classes. And I teach 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And I do an early morning sadhana, which is meditation, mantra chanting, and pranayama from 7:50 to 7:50 to 8:30, followed by on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, an asana class, 8:45 to 9:45 on Monday, and then a deep core class, just 8:45 to 9:30 on Wednesday. And then on Friday, it's usually gentle yoga, 8:45 to 9:30, or yoga nidra, which is the yogic sleep, very deep meditative relaxation. So it's structured in a way that gives you a really nice week of practices, and it winds down on Friday, which is super nice. And then the all access pass gives you the 2.5 hour Ashaya Yoga immersion that happens on one of the Saturdays in the month. And it changes. I think this month is right near the end of this month, probably next week on Saturday. But go to ashayayoga.com and check out the February monthly pass, Pillars of Peace. It's really an amazing way to learn the Ashaya method. And, you know, most yoga methods, they don't really teach the scientific alignment-based method. So a lot of my friends, like, they won't do yoga because they're afraid they're going to get hurt and their bodies are so tight. It's like, well, hey, you do yoga to actually loosen up and to find a way to stretch that actually strengthens the joint, strengthens the muscles while also giving you flexibility. So it's really a wonderful therapeutic method. It's also deeply spiritually ingrained, and it comes from the 5 elements: earth, water, fire, air, and sky. And I teach according to the 4 essentials of Ashaya Yoga, which are 4 basic principles that are also related to the 5 elements. So if you want to learn about the body and the anatomy, it's like getting the owner's manual for the body, which we never get when we're born. We get born, they don't say, okay, here's how to take care of your body for the rest of your life. Like, no, we don't get that. So my attempt in creating Ashaya Yoga is to share the over 4 decades of knowledge that I've gathered and experienced to help people actually grow old gracefully. And not only that, but to actually work out some of the kinks in the body and strengthen parts of the body and muscles that can actually make the joints weak because there's such an imbalance through bad habits of posture. And I mean, that kind of happened to me with my hip. I did have a hip replacement, but I like to think that I used up my hip. Like, I'm so active. But, I've done a little bit more research on, what may have caused arthritis in my hip. And it seems to point back to a lifelong pattern of imbalance of the muscles so that my joints weren't quite wearing right. So I've done a lot of research and a study on how to actually stretch in a way that creates strength, increases the flow of blood, lymph, and energy to keep the joint, well lubricated and healthy, and to learn how to stretch so that the muscles are stretching from the belly of the muscle, not at the joints, not at the tendons. Tendons don't stretch much at all. When they do, they tend to tear, and ligaments adjust, but they don't stretch. So what I've done with Ashaya is really use some of the medical science and the scientific facts about the body to generate this method. But it's also a body, mind, and heart method, so that as we're stretching the body, we're doing it for a deeper purpose. Okay, so let's move right into the Asana Spotlight, which is a common pose, forward bend pose, called Janusirsasana. Janu means knee, and Shirsha means head. So it's known as the head to knee pose. Basically, it's a bent knee, forward bend pose. And to do this pose well, you're going to need a belt and a block like this. And then what I have here is a knee spacer. It's just a piece of a sticky mat that's rolled up, and I put rubber bands around it here. So it's kind of squishy. And this is going to go behind the knee. Now, this is really great for people with Knee issues, pain in the knee, a sprain, maybe more like a tear. I know a lot of people that are walking around with sore knees. Well, if the method that I give you today doesn't take the pain away, then we start using props. But typically, people do this pose when they bend their knee, their foot is sickled, their ankle is sickled, and they're not actually learning how to engage the right muscles that are needed in order to align the knee and keep the bones in their proper place. And so then we get pain, we get friction, and ultimately inflammation, which leads to the pain and it can turn into arthritis. So we'll try the method today, then we'll try using props, and you'll see there's many stages of how to do this pose so that you do it safely and you don't hurt yourself. Forward bending poses are among the most challenging poses because they require flexibility in the tightest areas of our body. So hamstrings, hips, and lower back. And the key principle of the body is to maintain the natural curves of the spine. So in the lower back, we have this sort of curve. It's called the lordotic curve of the low back. And that's where the spine goes in and the vertebrae go in. And when you sit, it puts the spine, because the hamstrings are pulling the hips under, it makes the spine go into a kyphotic, which means that it's a convex shape rather than concave shape. And when it's convex like that, then it puts pressure on the disc, these sort of spongy little discs, shock absorbers in between the bones of the spine, that then start to protrude out the back where all the nerve channels are and the nerve roots. And that's when you can get the irritation of the nerve, which nobody likes to have. So we'll be doing a method here that actually centralizes the disc and pulls those vertebrae in. But you have to be able to, accommodate the tight hip. So we'll be sitting up on props. Oh yeah, I forgot. You'll need a couple of blankets to sit on. So we'll get you all propped up today. And then always, like, your body is the wise master. So you have to listen to your body. And if after everything that I've given you, still it hurts, then don't do it. There are certain poses, there's like more modifications that you can do to get out of pain, but not every pose is for every body. So we just have to look at all that. Certainly, we don't want to jam ourselves into a pose that's, compromising our alignment. And all right, so here's the deal. This is part of the technique, but it's philosophy. So here's my question to you. I want you to contemplate this. Are we bound beings seeking freedom, or are we free beings seeking boundaries? Anyone? Okay, well, we're both, but from the tantric perspective, which is the philosophy that informs Ashaya Yoga, it starts with you are free. You are supremely free. Why? Because that is the nature of consciousness. That we have this freedom inside to have, do, and be whatever it is that we want. It starts from inside. You have to know what it is that you want. And then what value is that to you? And then what are you prepared to do about it? But think about this, that if we're free beings, then to help sustain and maintain that freedom, we really need to decide, if you're already free, then what is it that you want to bind yourself to? We need to learn how to set healthy self-boundaries, which will sustain the freedom and maintain the freedom. So we're free beings seeking boundaries. And even deeper than that, we think of sort of the cosmology of, like, how did we even get here? From the deepest philosophy is there's this notion, this concept that consciousness is free, that there was once a state, or there is a state called absolute consciousness, where it's like the sky, meaning that there's no limit, no boundary. It just keeps going, infinite, eternal. And the yogi said that that is basically where we come from, the freedom from everything. It's an undifferentiated space. It's considered one, so it's called non-dual, not two. It's a space of oneness and unity. We could just think of it as a no friction zone, right? Because there's nothing else or no one else to disagree. There's just a unified, cohesive oneness of consciousness. Okay. And out of that oneness, in order for this consciousness to actually know itself, it chooses to separate from itself, to limit itself into us. And so where we come from is we are this vast sea of diversity. Think of all the waves, but the waves are thrown up from the ocean itself. So the ocean in this metaphor would be the oneness, and yet on the surface of the ocean are the waves, and each wave is individual. That's us. So out of the oneness comes the manyness. Out of the universe comes the multiverse. From our perspective, the more we embrace diversity, the greater unity we achieve. And from the universal perspective, the oneness is seeking manyness. Just another metaphor, just think of this like a light, like a white light that comes through a crystal prism will diffract into 7 different colors. Actually, it's infinite colors, but we see them as the 7 colors of the rainbow. So interesting, 7 colors. We have 7 energy centers called chakras in our spine. See, this isn't coincidence. We come from the one radiant light. So the one light diffracts into the infinite finitude of form that forms our experience. And part of the Ashaya path and all spiritual practices is to, in some ways, learn from that infinite energy, become one with it, align ourselves with it. It's like aligning with nature. And when we do that in the body heals. The healing power is already there, but we keep going against the grain of the healing of our body, and we never heal because we don't rest, we don't get enough sleep, or we keep eating the wrong foods. And stress is a huge factor. And why do we have stress? Because we don't know ourselves. We're so worried about the future, and we're so unhappy about the past. Look, this path is you don't want to let your history get in the way of your destiny. And how many of us do that? Living with regret, not learning how to become the masters of our emotions. So this idea of growing ourselves, body, mind, and heart, we have to learn how to deal with stress, to engage with stress, and become sort of emotionally intelligent in order to know that emotions are not here to pull us down and drown us. Emotions are also energy in motions. They like to flow. So I'm just saying, like, give an example. If you lose a loved one, which is going to happen to everyone at some point. I lost my dad 2 years ago, and I couldn't feel my grief. And then finally some event happened and it triggered my grief, and I felt so much better. I just cried, I let it out. So, a lot of people hold back their grief. They're afraid to feel the grief because if they open to it, they're going to drown and die in the sea of emotion. It's never true. So emotions like to flow. And when we become more aware of how to more skillfully work with every part of life, then we're more in the flow of nature and the flow of life, which is wave-like. We are like waves on the ocean, and life goes up and down, up and down. When you go up, do you go up with it? Or do you feel like, oh, I don't deserve to have this much joy? I call that the joy toleration level. And when you go down, do you go down? Or do you keep hanging on to joy up here in a false way? So part of the mastery of this method is to learn how to flow in your life and know that no emotion lasts more than about 90 seconds when you really let it rip inside, including anger and grief and sadness. And so we let ourselves feel our feelings. Imagine that, to feel a feeling. It seems so basic, but I don't always let myself feel my feelings. And sometimes you can't feel your feelings right away in the moment, but you can reserve them to feel later. The point is to make a practice of how are you integrating your body, your mind, which includes emotions, and your heart, which includes the spirit, in every activity of life. Are you aligning with your heart's deepest, most desire? Are you going in the direction of your heart? Do you know what your gift is? And are you pursuing that gift? Are you serving the one light that flows through all of us? Depression comes when you've lost your purpose, when you're, so like immersed inside your own individual self that you can't see beyond it. We can get very, insular and almost narcissistic in that way, where we lose our perspective. But true joy, true happiness is when you reach out, you serve. Your purpose is serving something bigger than yourself. I had a teacher, or a philosophy teacher, that said greatness is knowing that you're greater than yourself. Greater than yourself, meaning that who you are is this limited individual self, like the wave, but knowing that also you're the ocean. You are vast, you are free. And so now we're free being, seeking boundaries. Then what is it you want to bind yourself to? What is the purpose for your life? Because if you don't bind yourself what your heart most deeply desires, something else is going to bind itself to you. It's karma. And it's not going to be, most likely, it's not going to be what you want. Like going into your family's business, there's no problem with that. But if you're like an amazing, gifted musician and you've always wanted to play music or teach music or whatever, and you're forced to go into a family business, it's like not so easy. And that's not exactly what I did, but I was really into music, and my dad was a musician also at one point, and then he turned to insurance. But I was a musician, and then I took my first yoga class, and I had a huge transformation, and I shifted out of the music field into the yoga field. And it was a choiceless choice. It's just like every part of my body said, oh my God, what is this yoga? I want more of this. I want to learn how to not just be a sort of a master of music, but a musician of life. So that's, what yoga can encompass. And of course, you can do everything else that you're already doing. So, okay, enough about that. So let's set some boundaries here and find our freedom. All right, so we're going to do a little bit of warm up. So join me standing at the top of your mat. Okay, come to the front of your mat, stand, and bring your feet hip distance apart. Front ankle and second toe lines parallel, and then lift and spread your toes. Notice when you lift your toes, your muscles start to engage. How we stretch is called an eccentric contraction, where even as you stretch your muscles, you hug in. The muscles engage and are toned even as you stretch. So let's just try this. Make a muscle. Okay, it's getting smaller and smaller. All right, make a muscle. So engage. This is called an isometric contraction. Here's a concentric contraction, when you actually move the hand towards you, the palm towards you. That makes the muscle. But then hug the muscle, keep it flexed, and then extend. That is an eccentric contraction. A lot of the sports teams are using this for their athletes because it secures the joints, makes it safe. All right, so that's how we're going to do it. Hands to your hips, feet parallel. Lengthen up through your sides, take your shoulders back, and then inhale, stretch your arms up. Exhale, fold. Lead with your heart. Hinge at your hips, bend your knees. We're going to stop right here. Put your hands on your knees and breathe. Stick your butt out behind you and try to get your low back to pull in so you get a curve, low back curve. And then see if you can go a little further down. Maybe put your hands on your shins or your ankles. If you can go all the way down, hands on eagle talons, that's the fingers, or you can put a block down, put your hands here. Bow, bring your forehead towards your shins, and then inhale, lift your heart halfway forward, reach your heart. Imagine that freedom is out there, so you're going to lift and try to drink in a little more freedom. And then exhale, fold, lift your toes, hug your muscles. The muscle hug is the boundary. Now, keeping the muscles hugged in, bind yourself to what you most deeply desire. And inhale, reach, exhale, and bow. Now step back into downward facing dog pose. Alternately press your heels. Bend the opposite knee.
And then bend both knees. See if you can create a low back curve here. It's a lot more difficult. So separate your feet wider, bend your knees, move your knees way out to the side. This is how they do it in the wild, wild west. So you like ride a bronco here, and then inner rotate your thighs and lift your sitting bones way up and see if you can get your low back to curve. Claw your fingers and pull from your hand all the way up into your heart. Lift your armpits up more. With your armpits up, the shoulder blades will engage. Keeping that, melt the heart. Let your heart be free, but shoulder blades engaged. Awesome. And then from your heart, push back down into your hands. And from your heart, root back through your heels. Keep your feet parallel but wide. And don't forget to breathe. We're going to just let the body heat up for a moment. Very good. Exhale, right leg forward. So big lunge forward. One thing about getting that lunge forward from downward dog, if you can't get your leg forward because your torso gets in the way or your arms get in the way, then lift your right arm as you step forward. I'll show you on my other side here. Like this. It's much easier than this. Okay. So right leg forward, lunge. Very good. Now walk your hands over to the left, bend your elbows, and see if you can come down toward the floor or all the way down. Hug your legs in to set the healthy boundary, and then push your thigh bones apart, widen. The clearer the boundary is, so scissor your legs, hug in, the more you're going to be able to expand. So from your pelvis, just push, extend back through your left foot and your right shin. We're doing a hip stretch. And then inhale, come up, step back, downward dog pose. Take a breath in. And then exhale, left foot forward. Okay to lift your left arm when you come forward. Hold. Hug into the boundary. You hug in and reflect on what does your heart most deeply desire. And then walk your hands over to the right. Bend your elbows down if you can, or just a little bit is fine. Go deeper. Hug your leg muscles and scissor your legs. So the front leg pulls back, back leg pulls forward like a scissor. And then as you hug your muscles in from your pelvic core, extend back out. So push back through the bones, through your right heel and your left shin, even as you hug in. Forearms down. Good. Step back, plank pose. So now we're here. If this is a challenge for you, try it with your knees on the floor. And then bend your elbows, slowly come down. Point your toes straight back, hug your legs, claw your hands, come up cobra. Lengthen the side ribs, take the head of your arm bones back, lift your heart, look up, and breathe. Exhale, downward facing dog pose. Step by step, walk in. Root down through your feet, sweep your arms out to the side. Use your legs to come up, and then exhale, release, palms in front of the heart. Okay, now we're going to do a little balance pose. So if you need help balancing, you can go to the wall and just hold on, but you can try it. So balance on your right leg. Bend your knee and cross your left ankle over the knee. Point your eyes down on the floor in front of you, just a few feet out. So when you have steady gaze, it really assists steady balance. Okay, but try not to grip your toes. Rather, place your feet and try to widen the bottoms of your feet. Now hug to the middle,
bring your palms together. Inner rotate your thighs and just stick your butt way back and bend your right knee. So you come down a little bit and then press the little toe edge of your left foot toward the floor. So you can see that the ankle is straight, it's not sickled. There we go. Stick your butt way back, try to generate a low back curve, then pull your tailbone in and press your left knee toward the floor so that you get a stretch. If you still don't have a stretch, keep going down and breathe. And then root through your right foot and come up. Stretch your arms up overhead. Exhale, release, bend your knees. And then cross. Put your weight on your left foot, cross your right ankle over. Palms in front. And then focus your gaze. It's going to really help out. So I like to look about 4 feet in front and down. Certainly it has to be a stationary point. Keep your shoulders back. Inner rotate your thighs. Stick your hips back behind you. Tailbone in. Point your right little toe toward the floor. And then you can push your right knee down. And that will give you the stretch to the outer hip. And this is very similar to the pose we're going to do, Janusirsasana, when we sit. So this is just, everything we've done so far is just the warm up. Breathe. Hug the middle, squeeze in, set the boundary, and then expand from the pelvic core, just radiate out. From the middle of the bones, you expand out. Even as you hug your muscles onto the bone pushes out into the muscle. Find your breath, and then root through the left foot, come up and release, stretch your arms up. Exhale, fold into Uttanasana, extended forward bend.
Now, way to go deeper in this pose, which we're going to use the same technique in Janusirsasana, is you engage the periphery and lift the periphery parts of the body up so the center core of the body can dive deeper in. What I mean by that is if you were to lift the head of your arm bones toward the back plane of your body, it would look like this. I don't know if you can see me. Here, the shoulders are rounded. You can pretty much see that, right? And here, I'm going to lift the arm bones up. And with the arm bones up, I can melt the center of the heart right between the shoulder blades, and the spine will sink. Okay, same thing. The waistlines move towards the back plane. The outer hip creases go back, and the arm bones. We're going to work with those points. All right, exhale, bend your knees, and slowly come down. Ready for Janusirsasana. So, first thing is sit Dandasana with your legs straight out, and then feel your low back. And if you've got spinal vertebra coming out, the spinous processes coming out, then you really need to elevate your hips. So I'm going to suggest 2 folded blankets. You just hop up, sit on the front third of the blanket. Now what starts to happen is the knees can hyperextend. So you may need to put something underneath the knees like this. You could put a block here so that you don't hyperextend the knees. Okay, this might be a little too big. So, just get an article of clothing. Here's a jacket. There, that's perfect for me. All right, so now take your hands and manually turn your thigh bones in like this. So here, this is the action of turning in. And that generates a low back curve. You can also widen your sitting bone out just a bit.
Then grab yourself a belt and put the belt around your feet. Hold way at the end of the belt. I want you to pull on the belt. Feet are parallel, spread your toes, feet are flexed. Get your little toes to push out to the sides. And then pull on the belt and get your low back to go way in, and then the shoulders back. This is called Dandasana. It's a good preparation, but you'll see all we need to do is bend a knee, and then we can go into Janusirsasana. But this really is super good for your back. Once the spinous processes are in, and it takes a lot of strength. So right now, your back muscles, the erector spinae, particularly, are getting strengthened. Okay. All right. So you should have no pain in your back here. You might have a little bit of tiredness because the muscles are working, but shoulders back, you have good alignment here, low back curve. All right. So I just want your body to get the imprint of what it feels like to be in good alignment. Okay, we didn't even bend forward yet. So the first step is just, can you go upright without even going forward? So now, I'm not going to use all of this, but you're going to use what you need to. So your right leg is stretched out, and then you bend the left knee back like this, okay? And here's where all hell breaks loose. So we can feel kind of like, well, you know, my knee hurts because look at the bend in the knee. So a couple of things. Inner rotate your left thigh more and turn it in right near the joint, and outer rotate your shin. Okay. And then do halfway between a point and a flex, call it a flointed foot there to get the ankle to be straight, and then curl the toes back and press the little toe edge of your foot down. And that engages your shin. And that's the boundary I want you to try to create, because that will allow you to widen your hip. The knee pain usually stems from an issue in the hip. So we can't open the hips until we have a boundary in the shin. So you push the little toe edge of your foot down and engages what's called the peroneal muscles, and then you can widen your thigh. If you still have pain in your knee, then open up the knee joint like this and put a spacer. So you could roll up a pair of socks, would be fine, and put it here. And you will start to feel, I mean, it's a little bulky, but what we've just done is open the back of the knee. That creates a little more room and space for the ligaments and also the cartilage, the meniscus. And if you have sort of like a little tear in the meniscus, then every time you bend your knee, you're going to feel it. But this could give you enough space so that when you bend the knee, the meniscus is free from the constriction there. Okay, so this is a little secret about knee pain. And I've had so many knee injuries, including a torn meniscus. The surgeons wanted to, of course, operate on it. And I said, no, let's just see how it goes. And I did all these therapeutics with, within the method of Ashaya and also using props and things, and my knee healed. Okay, so here we go. But you guys know I'm in favor of medical science. I have a titanium hip, so I'm not against medical science, but, try to work with alignment for a few months before, if you need surgery if you can hold off a little bit, see if there's some natural means that you can use to heal yourself. And then if not, I mean, pain it was the deciding factor for me. And all the doctors will tell you, oh yeah, if you can live with it, then don't get the surgery. But if you can't. All right, so now inner rotate your right leg as well. Flex the right foot, root the right heel down. Take your belt now and put it around your right foot. And I'd like you to do the same thing, pull the low back vertebrae in. Spinous processes pull in. And here it is, you're upright. Now make sure your knee is pointing straight up. And this is really a very decent Janusirsasana. So the first stage of all forward bends in the Ashaya method is to maintain the low back curve as you fold forward. So we say, do a back bend in the forward bend. So here's what that looks like. Okay. We want to avoid doing it with the arms up like this. It's a thing called loaded flexion, which puts weight on the vertebrae, which compress the disc more. So as you go forward now, lean with your heart and try to keep the low back in. So here's the back bend, stage 1 of forward bends. And then we begin to round, because naturally, the further you go forward, your spine is naturally going to round, and it's called flexion. And you know what? Flexion is good for the spine when it's done well, right? So pull your tailbone down now, pull your belly in and up, pull your ribs in. And then as you go forward, do a little twist to the right, hold the outer edge of your right foot with your left hand. If you can't reach that, you can hold the shin. And if you can't do any of that, you're going to hold on to the belt like this. Okay, so let's say we're here. Now comes the teaching of boundary and freedom. If you want more freedom in this, it's a very binding pose. If you want more freedom, then you have to engage and bind the periphery. So the shoulders lift, inner armpits lift up, the sides of the waistline lift up, the outer hip creases go back and down. So think of the whole periphery side of your body. Both sides is the periphery, go up toward the sky, toward the back plane of the body. Even the sides of the throat go up. But the central channel, the central line, midline, or the spine, midline of the spine, which is divine, better than wine. You got the time. Why not dine? Sorry. That has to melt and sink down and in towards the earth. Okay. So how do we get free in this pose? Take the head of your arm bones back. Bring your right hand so that it's parallel to the shin, not back here. Don't put your right hand way back here, because then it pulls the shoulder back, it rotates in, and now you've compressed the periphery, and it's going to create more binding in the body, more than you need. So the right hand comes forward, come on eagle talons like this, bend your elbows, lift the elbow up, outer elbow up, inner armpits up, melt the heart. Waistlines back, bend forward more. Try to hinge from the hips, pull your tailbone in, belly pulls in and up, and then continue. And see if you can reach your heart more toward the foot. And this is Janusirsasana, head to knee. So obviously, we're not going to put our head on the knee, but you move your heart toward the foot. Awesome. And then root down through the hips and inhale, come up and go back to low back curve. So we come out of it the same way we go into it. And there we are. Okay, switch your legs. Left leg straight, bend your right knee. Let me show you another. I'm going to turn the other way. So to avoid the knee pain, you put the spacer, you floint the foot, you press the little toe edge down, and if you still have pain, put a block underneath your knee. So what happens is when the end of the femur is lifted, the head of the femur is going to descend. And that's part of the problem, is that when your knee goes down, the head of the femur lifts up and it bumps up against the joint in there, the acetabulum, and we get bone on bone there. So what we want is the head of the femur needs to internally rotate and root back. And that's what the block does. Okay, so it's just like an additional therapeutic for the knee. Okay, manually turn your thigh in. Okay, I don't need this. Karate chop, the little toe edge of your right foot down. Inner rotate again, closer to the knee. All right. And then you can inner rotate your left thigh as well. Root the left heel, grab your belt, put it around the left foot, hold like this. Root your left thigh down into the earth, turn your thighs and stick your butt way back and try to get your low back, all these spinal processes in the back to pull in. Remember, we can call this the first stage where you sit upright. Can you do this with proper alignment? If not, then hop up on blankets. And when the pelvis is elevated like that, it creates this inner rotation, and it's also called nutation. So the sacrum tips, the top of the sacrum tips in a little bit, which really supports the low back. Okay, so we got this. Then hug into the middle. Just squeeze muscles to bone, scissor your legs. What do you want to bind yourself to? With a sense of a healthy, like let's set some healthy self boundaries, then begin to move forward with freedom. Keep the back bend in the forward bend. That's our technique. Back bend and forward bend. Twist a little bit left. Hold the little toe edge of your left foot if you can reach that, or the outer edge of the shin. Like the forward bends, there's like 10 different variations depending on your body and your pain threshold. So we want to keep the low back in. And then if you can go further, press your heart toward your foot. The second stage is the spine does flex. It starts to round. Pull your tailbone in. Pull the navel in and up. Turn your torso slightly to the left, and then walk your left hand forward so it's in line with your shin. You can see my left hand here. And then lengthen your side ribs. Pull the head of the arm bones back. It's just like downward facing dog pose that we did earlier. Inner armpits up. Then take the waistlines back, the outer waistlines. The ribs pull in, and then the outer hip creases go back. So the periphery is where the boundary is. You lift don't let the periphery collapse. And with a strong periphery, then the core can melt. Lift your arm bones, melt. The whole central line of the spine melts toward the earth, but the periphery lifts towards the sky. And when you find the balance of boundary and freedom, your heart opens. You recognize your true nature, which is supreme freedom, which is joy and bliss. Breathe. Even take the sides of your neck up. Corners of your eyes go up. Awesome. So I'm just going to go a little bit further because I really enjoy the feeling of this stretch. And the armpits continue to go, even though my elbows go down, my armpits are going up, waistlines go up, the whole peripheral sides of my torso. I'm creating a huge boundary here. And that's why I can go a little further because the boundary is set. Of course, my breath is full and I have good awareness of the pain threshold. So you have to be able to distinguish between sharp pain and discomfort. So discomfort is okay. Sharp pain, not okay. It's a signal. You've gone too far or something. Your body's not enjoying this. Also, after a while, like the forward bend just feels so good. We take a deeper dive inside and just close your eyes for a moment and reflect
and breathe. Hug your muscles in so you're surrounded by warmth and safety. This boundary protects you and protects your freedom. And then root down through your hips. Walk your hands back to the mat. Create the low back curve. You can go back to your belt, or if you've been using a belt, do the upright position. And then release. Come lie on your belly. And we're just gonna bend the opposite way. So on your belly, stretch your toes back and come up onto your forearms, elbows underneath your shoulders. And then just let the spine sink forward and into the body. Take your shoulders back a bit. Hug your legs toward the middle. And then pull your tailbone in. Take a deep breath. And then extend your heart forward. Kind of pull your heart out of the belly and belly out of the hips. Then from your pelvis, push back through your feet. So your legs grow, your torso grows. And we just do this little back extension as a counter stretch. Exhale, come down. Good. All right, now come to a seated position. Seated position. Roll your thigh bones in. Draw your tailbone down. Join index fingers and thumbs. This is it's called a mudra. It's called the Jnana mudra of knowledge. But also it represents, it's symbolic, but it represents our index finger, which is like our individual wave, touching the thumb, which is like the ocean. So we touch individual to universal there. And it's nice, it makes a circle, and the fingers form the galaxy. All right. Close your eyes. Lengthen your side ribs from hips all the way up to the shoulders. And take the head of your arm bones back. Breathe into the freedom through the central channel of your spine. Shoulder blades hug. You create a boundary right behind the heart, like the hands of the divine hugged onto the back of the heart, urging you to offer your gift to the world, to go for the light, to serve a greater energy. Lift through your throat. Take your palate back. That's the center roof of the mouth, and the back of the skull up. Just place your head in alignment over your heart, in alignment over the hips. Head, heart, and body all in one line. Close your eyes and breathe through the central channel of your spine. May we align body, mind, and heart. May our heart awaken to be able to express and fulfill its fullest potential for freedom and happiness and joy and good health. May we set healthy self-boundaries on this day that support not only ourselves, but all those around us. Because when you're happy, other people get happy around you. And of course, the opposite is true. When you're miserable, you make everybody else miserable around you. So today, we choose happiness. Today, we choose alignment. Today, we choose to live from the heart and to reclaim the freedom that's been there all along through setting healthy self-boundaries. What's one boundary you need to set today? Okay, bring your palms together in front of your heart. And let's share in this freedom together and spread it out over the entire globe with the sound of Om. Om. The freedom in me bows to the freedom in you. Namaste.
Thank you so much for practicing with me today. AshayaYoga.com. Come check out the February classes. Just think, a month of this. It's really great. And the community is so supportive and special. It takes a village to raise a yogi. So I hope you'll consider joining. And guess what? If you're new to Ashaya, you get a week for free. First week is free. Okay, first week on me. All right. Have a great day. See you next time.